Ghana's approach is to do an enhanced thing, find people early, give them support so that we don't have to get there. And then the president mentioned the fourth thing, which was that to allow us to get as much data as needed, he was restricting movement by executive instrument in Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi, so that the health experts could go out there and do a lot of these tests and give us data to inform the next line of action. The president never said that he was imposing these restrictions because we were at X number of cases. Because if he did, then by logical implication, you see that then if the case count goes higher, to allow health experts to go out there and to get us data. 2 weeks on, the president updated the country that there was a lot of data in. Unfortunately, he is of the view, based on the advice of the experts, that they would like to have 1 more week to complete the gathering of their data to inform the next line of action. On Sunday, the president updated the nation that that data was in. Showed, among a number of things, a composite infection rate of about 1.5, which if you break down into various categories, you will see the infection rates, or what they call the positive rate, or on the website you see positivity rate among various cohorts, but 1.52 positivity rate. And the president explained that based on a number of factors, about 7 factors he outlined, he was ending or adjusting Ghana's response as follows. Number 1, the preventive etiquette, which we have been teaching and which the science says has the ability to cut the transmission rate. He was maintaining all the old ones, and he was going to add one more, which is the wearing of masks. The wearing of masks, we are told, even has a further high potential to cut the rate of spread. So the president, the government did not lower or reduce the first intervention of preventive etiquette. Rather, it has been enhanced by adding the wearing of masks. In the past few days, government is working on how to ensure that as much of those are made available and people can also make their own, and we'll put out the guidelines shortly. Then on the second subject of restrictions, closure of borders, schools, and all of those things, His Excellency the President announced that we are maintaining all of those. Again, that one has not been reduced. Item number 3, testing. And as we have made, the value of testing is that you go out early, find people mostly asymptomatic or early exposure, you can give them supportive treatment, then they don't come into a sick bracket to require hospitalization, etc. He said our testing, which today put Ghana at the highest in Africa when it comes to test per million of the population, we are even going to enhance it a bit more, further enhancing the testing rate, which will give us a higher advantage in finding if there are more people early exposure than to deal with them. And then on the final subject of restrictions, or lockdown as they call it, he said while in Accra and Kumasi, those were being lifted because the objective had been achieved. The objective of giving them the opportunity to go out and test had been achieved. Now, dealing with the hotspots and the other districts across the country, they have an eye on areas where if it becomes necessary that there's a lockdown, they would impose a lockdown and curfew in those particular hotspots or districts, as you may call it. Therefore, the narrative or the view by some that we have lowered our response is incorrect. As we have gone through and tried to demonstrate, you notice that many of the instances we've either maintained it or we have enhanced it. And even in the case of the last one, the lockdown, which was just Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi, and not even across the country, that amendment has been explained of the new measures that are put in place. The role of the security agencies, we are told in the coming days, is going to change from enforcing a lockdown to helping us comply with all of the other measures that we are going through. So just a quick reiteration of the government response program. Government has not lowered the program. Indeed, as we have gone through in some of the instances, we actually enhanced those, and we'll provide some more details later. Now, one of our strongest tools is our testing capacity and our testing capability. We want to invite Professor William Ampofo, who is the head of virology at Noguchi. And they are also leading the entire testing program, which is coordinating a number of labs assisting Noguchi in this testing exercise to help us legitimate questions that have come up about our testing. We can rely on that data. Professor Ampofo, please join us with that. Just a moment for them to sanitize the podium.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for this opportunity to discuss our testing program. First, I would like to thank my colleagues at Noguchi, at the Kumasi Center, KCCR, Services Directorate Lab, and the CSR Lab, all together working day and night. I think there are close to over 150 people who have worked tirelessly to described on Sunday. Now, if you've been to Noguchi recently, you'd have seen the white building, the entrance of our institute. This building actually facilitated the process. It has enabled us to test thousands of samples within the recent couple of weeks. How have we done this testing? As you have heard, you cannot see a virus. So to test for the virus, we actually extract the inner component of the virus, and it's called ribonucleic acid. Now, how do we collect the sample, or what kind of sample do we use for the testing? Because this is a respiratory virus, we look for the virus in the respiratory pathway, okay? So we take swabs from the nose, swabs from the throat. We also take sputum, which you bring out from the throat. And then we also have another method where we introduce salt water in your nose and you blow it out, and it's called nasal lavage. So these are the 4 types of specimens or samples we have used in Ghana to test for the coronavirus. When these samples arrive at the lab, whether it is Kumasi or Noguchi or the VSD or the Public Health Reference Lab, we go through a process to enable us to utilize the reagents or chemicals in a very efficient manner. We simply pool the samples. What is pooling? Pooling just means that if you have 1,000 samples, you put them in pools of 10, and therefore you test at a time 100 pools. So in a short time, instead of testing only 1,000 samples, you actually test 10,000 samples. This simple arithmetic is what some people cannot do. If you want to understand how we are able to utilize our existing facilities using a method which was derived in 1945 for screening samples right from the blood bank, this is a very efficient way of proceeding. The other thing we've done is that to ensure that we're actually not diluting the sample when we mix 10 of them together, we simply took one positive sample, which was at the limit of the detection of our system, and diluted with 9 other samples which were negative. Therefore, we would determine that if we pool 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 together, we are still able to detect the first sample, which is at the limit of the positive detection. Again, with our partners, we have the late kind of equipment to be able to do this direct detection. So, as we started, we realized that as the number grew, we were actually pooling 5 samples. So, as we started, we realized that as the number grew, we were actually pooling 5 samples, and then we changed to a pooling of 10 samples. And this simple protocol was followed both by colleagues in KCCR, and of course, it's now adopted by our colleagues here at PHR-BSD. So in a nutshell, you can understand that it is not impossible to have tested 68,000 samples, as His Excellency the President reported when he addressed all of us. Actually, since he addressed us, we have actually tested close to 30,000 samples. Again, using the same method, because each time we do 10,000 samples is actually, a multiplication of a simple initial number. So please do not be surprised if in the next couple of days you hear that we have tested 100,000 samples in Ghana. It's just a matter of, multiplication and addition. Now, how efficient is this process? We don't just test. Each test that is done follows quality control step as indicated by the manufacturer. We have actually used 4 different PCR kits in Ghana. 2 of them provided by the World Health Organization and the Africa Centers for Disease Control, and also the West African Health Organization. So you can understand that the test kits that we used are according to international standards and verified by these organizations to ensure that the process we are doing is in line with the applicable procedures. Also, we have established a common quality assurance program where we have exchanged samples between KCCR and Noguchi to ensure that samples that we say are positive at Noguchi are also checked by KCCR. And we have also done the same thing for samples from KCCR. Furthermore, the WHO has established an external quality assurance program, and we will be taking part in the external quality assurance program. I understand that the Africa CDC also starting such a program for us in Ghana. You've also heard about rapid diagnostic tests and the policy that the FDA, the Food and Drug Authority, has adopted is that all such rapid diagnostic test kits have to be evaluated and assessed for their ability to pick up a true positive, which we call sensitivity, and the ability to rule out a true negative, which is called specificity. So this process is currently ongoing, and we have established a panel of blood samples that are truly positive and that are truly negative. We are in the process of reporting back to the FDA which kits, therefore, are most sensitive and most specific and therefore suitable for use in Ghana. This will then enable us to do more testing, but the results will be in combination with what we call the PCR, so that we can accurately describe as somebody having been exposed, accurately describe somebody as having been infected, and accurately describe somebody as having been previously exposed. It's very important to understand the distinction between these categories, or else people will think that they have the virus, whereas they have just been exposed and they have actually recovered. I think that this is a sufficient explanation of everything that we are doing so far on testing. If there are any specific questions or issues, I think that it's brought to attention and we will once again come here. But I must thank all my colleagues in the background who you do not see. They have worked tirelessly day and night in 2 shifts, making sure that we are able to provide the testing to support the COVID response. Thank you very much.
Prof, you're touching my podium. You have to use that. Professor William Ampofo is the head of virology at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research. They are coordinating all the tests across the country. Prof will join us later to help us understand a few questions. So we have admitted here on this platform and on several other platforms that out of this about, is it 80,000 currently getting to 100,000 in the medium term tests, there are some tests that have been done more than once. Why? Because, for example, if you look at our recovery rate, 99%, what it means is that those persons were tested 3 times. The first positive test and 2 negatives. At least, if you look at those who were in mandatory quarantine, they were tested at least twice. That is 1,000 and 30, and then they were tested about twice. So you will find some tests that have been run more than once. But Ghana is reporting that we have done about 80,000 tests. We have also admitted, nobody has hidden it, that some of these tests have been done more than once. The question is, how many of these 80,000 tests have been done more than once? And does that take away from the view of Ghana's test numbers? If, for example, by the time you do that mathematics for us, it is 0.5% of the tests that are repeat tests. Does that mean that the 99.5% of the tests, singular tests, which showcase Ghana's test per million or Ghana's test capacity, should be thrown away, should be discounted, that therefore numbers are duplicated? Prof, we'll need you to help us later. It fits into the question of whether we are reporting number of tests or people tested. Because the big question is put up, are you reporting number of tests or people tested? But the real question is, what we have admitted about the double test, what percentage of the total test is it? And does that negate the essence of the entire testing exercise? So, Prof, you have to help us to understand all of this. I want to quickly move to case management and case count before I come to this model. Because Dr. Nsiasa, we are all scared. You say 3 million people and 15,000 would die. We are all scared. So we'll come to you to help us with the details. But I want to move to case management. From the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kuma Abuaji.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I'm using your slide. Good morning. We'll just give you a brief of where we are as of this morning. As you know, we have the cases categorized into general surveillance, travelers, enhanced surveillance, and then the total. Under the general surveillance, as at the 20th of April, which we're reporting, we have 401 cases that are reported positive. We still have the 115 travelers who are quarantined and tested at 115. Through enhanced contact tracing, in the last 3 weeks, we had about 638 positives, bringing the number to 1,154 cases as at today. Out of this, we have had about 120 on having recovered, a change from the 99 in the last reporting. Of these recoveries, 82 have come from the Ghana East. UGMC has reported 17 recoveries. Rage has 3 people have recovered. The 7 military hospitals have recorded 4 recoveries. Terminal Hospital 1, Ashanti region has 6. WA has, in this case, has 1, and Tamale has 6 cases reported. Of those who are well and responding to treatment, including those who are asymptomatic, that comes to about 1,021, accounting for about 88.5% of our cases are well, no symptoms, and those who have mild symptoms are responding to treatment. We have 4 people currently in critical or moderately severe condition. Only 1 is on ventilator, and these are in Ghana East and UGMC as we speak this morning. So, in a nutshell, this is what we can share with you. A significant number of the people are currently in isolation. Thank you very much.
Dr. Patrick Abadi, thank you for that update. So now we have 120 recoveries. Doc, did I hear you correctly? 120 recoveries? Doc, 120 recoveries. 120 recoveries. Okay, and making our way through gradually. We'll also invite you later to respond to questions that our colleagues may have. Shortly, I'm going to invite Dr. Nsiasare to come and explain this model of 3 million people to be infected, 15,000 to die, to come and explain this model. Before then, it is my understanding that chief executives of state-owned enterprises, the state-owned enterprises themselves, or entities. Is it the entities or the chief executives? The chief executives of the state-owned entities, those that come under SIGA, have also come together with a contribution which they want to make available to the COVID-19 Relief Fund. Honorable Deputy Minister for Information, please join me. And let me invite the representatives of the chief executives to join us and to make that presentation. May I quickly mention that the COVID-19 Relief Fund, that money does not come to central government to utilize. I think it's an important clarification we have to make. That money, please come to the front here. Please come to the podium, yes. That money does not come to central government to utilize. It goes to the fund which is administered by a board of trustees. A board of trustees led by the former Chief Justice, Madam Sophia Akufu, and they are going to administer that fund in accordance with the law that was passed by Parliament. Social distance observed. So in accordance with the law that was passed by Parliament, the trustees of the COVID-19 Relief Fund are the ones who will apply these funds in accordance with the law that was passed. It does not come from central government. So please let us take note accordingly. There have been those who have donated items in kind that have gone to various ministries and departments that are handling parts of it, like items, etc. And we are grateful to them as well. So, Honorable Pius. Thank you. Very quickly. Mr. Very quickly.
All right. Thank you. We're doing this on behalf of the CEOs and deputy CEOs of all the state entities. And this is an initial contribution. We still have a way to go, and under what we call the COVID support project for the state CEOs and deputies, we will still be making more contributions. And also, this is not coming from the institutions. These are the individual contributions of the CEOs and the deputy CEOs. Thank you very much.
So CEOs and deputies and SIGA for continuing, we are very grateful. Dr. Nsiasare, please join us and explain this model to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Yes, yesterday I was at TV and I gave a hypothesis, which is a hypothesis that WHO put out, which is based on population of the country. And that's the hypothesis I gave, that if Ghana stayed without doing anything at all, that's what will happen to us as a country. That's the 10% of the population having being infected and 20% of them getting sick and about 5% of them getting very seriously ill. But I said, and I'm sure they should have quoted me on that, that is the case in Africa. If I base on the facts and the data that we have realized that our actual figures are far below what WHO has quoted. And it's because when we saw the WHO hypothesis, we were a bit scared So we put a lot of things in place, which the Honorable Minister have mentioned, especially the preventive etiquette, which has become a new normal in the country, social distancing, ban on social gatherings, and also ban on limitation on or restriction on coming into the country, because we realize that most of the problems that we have in this country were imported. So after doing all these things, and also we restricted movement in two of our great metropolises to get the data that we are using now. So from seeing the data, it has shown clearly that in Ghana, we will not go in that direction. And luckily, His Excellency the President has added more measures, like wearing masks where everybody here is wearing masks. Because if you wear the mask and you go out, and then your brother and your sister is wearing masks, you don't bring the disease home. As we have always been saying, the virus no legs. It's human beings who carry the virus. So I want to just make it very short that it's not true that Ghana will have 3 million people infected before we reach the peak. We will never see that. Because as we speak now, as Dr. Abuaji said, the number of deaths in the country is 9. 9 deaths. If you calculate it according to the percentage of people who have been infected, it's 0.7%. So it's nowhere near the 5%. If you look at the number of tests that we have done so far, we have 1,154 positivity, which comes about 1.5% positivity people that have been tested. And if you look at even the negative rate, it's about 98.5%. So we are not getting near, or will never get near the WHO hypothesis. But as we speak now, there are a lot of people who are doing modeling. There are different modelings coming out. Where's the scenario, if you do this, if you do that? But the modeling is not even static. It's dynamic, according to the data that we see every time. So at the end, Ghana have a model for this COVID-19. And I can also assure you that when we look at all what the measures that government has put forward, and everybody stay at home when he doesn't have to go out, there will be no much problem. But that's not it that we are out of the doom. So please, this is what it is, and that is how our affairs are. And as the President said, we'll be back by data and science. Thank you.
Dr. Nsiansia is the President's advisor on health. Just to reiterate the point you have just made, and let me see if I get you correct. Doc, let me see if I'm correct. What you are saying is that this your comment that 3 million people could be infected in Ghana and 15,000 out of that could die is based on the WHO hypothesis or model. But as a second matter, you are saying that even what's observing in Ghana, the actuals, does not correspond with that one. And that thirdly, what you are saying is that the kind of measures that we have rolled out, we expect that that kind of global model that they have put in place, which births these numbers, when you feed into it the Ghana population, it will not happen now. Okay, I think I understand you well now. Actually, if you watch the clip of that interview, I think the journalist was also asking you, is it a hypothesis or is this a model? I'm not too sure you caught and answered that part well. And it's part of what has fed into the perception out there. But the clarity you have given us this morning, we are grateful. We'll have an opportunity to have our colleagues ask you some questions later. I think these are the major briefs we have for you today. We're going to take questions at this point in time. Before we do that, it is my understanding that the National Health Insurance Fund has a quick contribution that they want to make. Dr. Selby, can you please join us? Colleagues who have questions, please show by hand. 2 at a time, come to the podium. And while we're waiting for you to come, Dr. Selby is going to come. So, Professor Ampofu, I've already given you one question about number of tests and number of persons, and whether that takes away from the narrative about Ghana's testing efficacy. We also had a second question that we have also noticed coming up, that if you look at the line graph, and there are different types of graphs. If you look at the data that the Ghana Health Service provides, there's pie chart, there's a bar graph, there's a line graph. There are some who say that if you look at the line graph, it suggests that you are suppressing the data, that you are recording some cases and not reporting. I'll need to add that to your questions and explain that to us. So National Health Insurance, this is a check of how much? 250,000. Oh wow, 250,000 cedis. And we are very grateful for this contribution from the National Health Insurance Authority. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Ordinarily, you should be paying for our medical bills. But since you are not paying, it means you are supporting payment of... Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we have questions.
Good morning. My name is
Go ahead, Kojo.
So question number one to the Director General of Dr. CSR. What does the possibility bring on the Ghana Health Insurance Ghana Services website actually mean? Is it at the same as the prevalence rate of COVID-19? And then what is the incidence of COVID-19 in Ghana? And then my second question would be, are we reporting the number of tests or the number of people tested?
I think I've asked that one already.
Okay. And then out of the case count as of today, how many of them are part of the 18,000 backlog of samples the President spoke about? And then if someone is tested and asked to self-isolate, while the person awaits the results, how do we ensure that that person really isolates him or herself and do not, step out? At all. And my last question would be
This is based on an analysis of
research and then research institutions like Noguchi.
Dr. Nsia, how are we ensuring that those we say they should self-isolate indeed self-isolate? I will leave that one for Dr. Abuaje. The 18,000 back, how is it contributing to some of the new numbers we are reporting? Again, I'll leave that one for Dr. Abuaje. Incidence of COVID-19 in Ghana and positivity rate. Maybe Professor Amfu and the team, you may want to confer and decide who will answer that one for us. Let me go to the next set of questions.
My name is Omla Adom. I work with Joy News. My question goes to the Ghana Health Service Director General. We still have issues of inadequate or absence of PPEs in some health facilities. For example, the anchor for leprosy and
insufficient PPEs, right?
Yes,
okay.
And absence in some cases.
Very well.
Anchor for leprosy and General Hospital, for example, the Cape Coast Metro Hospital, Chifopraso, Abutadunkwa Medical Facility. We have nurses there reaching out to us that they still do not have PPEs to work with. So they're asking the questions, where are the PPEs that are being delivered to facilities on a daily basis? Also today, there was a report that at Mamobi Polyclinic, a midwife there told us that they are selling PPEs to their workers because they do not have provision from the government. So my question to the health service, where are the PPEs that we've been told about that they've been distributed to all these facilities? And also to Dr. Abuaje, on Monday you told my colleague Ernest Mill on a program on Joy News called News Desk that our curve is flattening.
Which of the curves, by the way? Hospitalization, recovery, positivity, or
positivity.
What? He said the positivity curve was flattening.
The question was put to him, at this rate, do we have our curve flattening? Then Dr. Abuaje mentioned yes.
Oh, is that so?
And okay. Now that we have 1,154 cases and expected that some more results of the test are going to come, do we still say that our curve is flattening?
Fantastic question. Doc, while you're answering that question, it's important to explain what they mean when they say the curve is flattening. In some jurisdictions, you see them talking about the hospitalization some are talking about death, so what are we talking about? Colleagues, we have to nuance this because a lot of these things are new to many of us who are even purporting to talk about it. So it's important we have a clear understanding of what the concept means and therefore certain nuance on. So Doc, please take advantage of it to educate us what we mean when we say the curve is flattening. Is it the hospitalization curve, death, recovery, new infections, etc., etc.? Just a quick comment before we even proceed. Health workers who have challenges with PPEs, we have asked that you also call 311, give us the feedback so that we can quickly feed it to those who are monitoring the supervision. The gaps can be closed faster that way. But I'll let Doctor respond to that specific question about the hospitals you mentioned. Yes, sir, TV3.
Yes, my name is Godfrey Tanum. I want to find out what is taken into consideration in putting somebody under home management.
In the what?
Home management.
Yes.
Yes, and also how they monitored.
Sorry, I didn't get the first question. What is taken into consideration?
How somebody is kept under home management.
Okay.
Yes, and then
what determines the decision
exactly
to treat somebody at home?
Right.
Okay.
Are they monitored? Because there were concerns that people are too sure whether these people are monitored well and then make sure that they are really adhering to whatever they are supposed to.
Very well.
So the fear is that they might be in the public to infect others.
Very well. Very well. So Dr. Baje, what determines the decision to manage some people at home? And then how stringent is the monitoring of those who are being monitored at home? The first set of questions are done. Then let me proceed to some answers. Maybe let me do the policy question very quickly. So Dr. Nsiasai, the policy question. The research institutions moving forward, what is the policy intent? How do we want to ensure that they are made very relevant in our health delivery system? Please come.
Yeah, thank you very much. If you look at the President's strategic overview or the strategic things that he wants to do, among them is one, limit and stop importations, detect and contain cases, slow down community spread, care for the sick, impact on social and economic life, and the sixth one is domestic capacity and reliance. In fact, the President said, we want to use this opportunity to increase the domestic capacity of all sectors, including research centers. So we want to come back and be where we were before. I think you mentioned during the Ebola period. We don't want to finish COVID-19 and then come back and say that we don't have, for example, capacity to do testing of all epidemics. Epidemics will continue to come from time to time. So we are going to use everything that we have to make sure that we strengthen our research capacities, including Noguchi. Noguchi is for the sub-region, for Africa. And now we have KCC, we have all the other researches. There are 3 research institutions in the northern belt, in the south, in the middle belt, and also in the coastal belt. We want to increase and strengthen of them. In addition, we also want to go out of this having infectious disease centers in the 3 ecological zones. One in the northern zone, one in the rainforest zone, another one at the savannah zone. And this is in addition to building the capacity of our local productions and the rest. So this is what our strategic direction is, and we are going to make sure it happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Ghana Health, sir, please join us. So it's my understanding that the questions of positivity incidence of COVID-19 in Ghana will refer that to Noguchi. But Ghana Health Service, you want to help us very quickly, Dr. Bedisa Akodie. So how much of the new cases that are being reported are coming from the 18,000 back? Then when you finish, I'll go to Dr. Abuaje for the other questions of the case management. You want to help me out?
Thank you very much, Honorable. The simple answer to this is that we have quite a good chunk of this being part of the specific percentage. But then, as you sit here now, you need to back and then pull this out and share
Okay.
in the public. Thank you very much.
Grant you that space to do that. Thank you. Dr. Abba, do you want to join us? How are you ensuring, so first of all, what goes into the decision to manage some people at home? How are you ensuring that they are monitored? How are you ensuring that those that you see they should self-isolate, they are really self-isolating? What do you mean when you say the curve flattening? And what do you say about some areas that they still complain of insufficient or absent PPE? I think about 4 questions. If you can join me. 4 questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Maybe I'll start with insufficient PPEs. As was mentioned, a significant amount has been pushed in. So you mentioned specific hospitals that do not have. We will follow up and see why is it that they do not have. Because we have actually increased the number of PPEs that have been distributed through the regions. When one says the curve is flattening, there are several aspects that goes with it. How many deaths are happening? We've been at 8 now to 9 over a long time. So it means that there's no any increasing in the number of deaths. The number of admissions are not increasing, and so that can be also the damn percentage positives are not increasing over the years. So when you look at that, you can see where you are not, you can see a cascade of going up, both admissions, deaths, everything. So we are not getting that. So that's what is it. There are several 3 key reasons that is used in determining whether somebody can self-isolate. And if you do not have a comorbidity, you are positive, you do not have a comorbidity. That means that comorbidity, you don't have any serious disease in addition to the COVID. Let's say you are diabetic, you have hypertension, definitely you yourself will not be able to self-isolate. If the home environment is inappropriate, or if you have an appropriate home environment where we believe that you can be able to have enough space and isolate without interfering with any other person, that'll be fine. Of course, we also look at the fact that is there somebody who is likely to cooperate and be disciplined? And that's are the 3 things that happens. When you are there, every day, either you get a call or you get a visit to see how you are doing. And we determine once the situation changes, you are likely to be readmitted into the facilities. So I think these are my questions. Honorable Minister, thank you very much.
So I'm going to invite Professor Ampofo to deal with the specific questions on testing. And I have some other questions on testing that some of the other media colleagues have brought us. Let me put them out now. Those that you're ready to respond to, you can. Then later we can re-invite you to respond to the rest. So there's one about the number of tests and the number of people tested and whether it makes any difference in the analysis that we are. Because I've seen a lot of commentary that, only talking about number of tests. They are not talking about the number of people testing. But it's important to help with the numbers so that all of those who are following at home can understand. I think this question has been related to any time frame for Government of Ghana's 3 million infection projection. I think it's been answered by Dr. Nsiansari in putting into context that comment that made. Okay, so you please take this.
Thank you very much for the questions. I think I will go to the one that is about the chart on the Ghana Health Service website. Looking at the bar, I think it's a line graph. Okay. I think it's again simply a matter of scale. If you actually amplify the line, the values indicated, and you draw a line, you actually see that there is no discordance between the data that is being reported. I'd like to suggest to Ghana Health Service to use a bar graph that would, for each time point, represent clearly the value that is being projected. Because the line joining 2 points gives the wrong impression that the values in between the 2 points are increasing exponentially. And that is not correct. Because what the Ghana Health Service reports is actually dependent on the rate of reporting by the individual laboratories, all collectively presenting the data to the Ghana Health Service. So we have the KCCR, we have Noguchi, we have VSD, and we have the PHR. So they're having to accumulate all the data at a specific time point and then present to you. That is not directly equal to the rate of transmission. You will have to extrapolate back to the actual date that the sample was collected. And that is the analysis that currently they are trying to do. And that's why you hear mention of a backlog. So once we're able to sort out the backlog, then they will be able to calculate the rate of infection. They will be able to present data on incidence, and we'll all understand how the spread has actually taken place. So once again, we are trying to have what we call real time. The date that the sample is collected, and then the date, if it is on the same day, then the Ghana Health Service will be able to discuss incidence and spread. And that's why His Excellency the President said that testing is being enhanced, and hope that we will be able to cut this duration from time of sample collection to time of reporting to within 24 hours. The Ghana Health Service is introducing what we call a barcode system. We wish we had done this from the beginning. So each sample will have a barcode. The geographical location of where the sample is collected will be understood. The sample will arrive in the lab. The barcode will be read. And then the results will be transmitted electronically from the lab back to the central database. This will therefore shorten the time, and we will therefore be able to process many more samples more efficiently. So we really welcome the introduction of this, and we are grateful to the Ministry of Communications for helping to facilitate this process. There's been a question on providing data on the actual number of tests conducted by KCCR and by Noguchi. So I'll share something with you. Today, the data that we had from Noguchi was that we had processed 76,921 samples. We had actually tested 70,921. So this gives us a backlog of about 6,000. We've been able to improve our rate of detection, as you heard. So we hope that we will be able to clear this backlog by the end of this week. For our colleagues in Kumasi, as of yesterday, they had processed 25,219 samples. They had tested 15,280 samples. So they have a backlog of about 10,000. And if you look at the testing capacity, you understand that, as I told you before, we have actually 4 labs working together in Accra, and there's just 1 lab in Kumasi. We have a staff strength of about 15 to 20. They are doing 2 shifts day and night, but they have a limited capacity. Whereas in Accra, we have more machines, more PCR machines available, and we've had over 150 people working 3 shifts 24/7. So that counted for the better or faster rating. Now, I hope that we've understood that the number of samples is approximately equal to the number of tests that are reported. There has been some discussion about the testing for the recoveries. Recoveries we have right now is 120 people. If those people have been tested 4 times, that's 480 samples or 480 tests. So the retests are insignificant compared to the total number of tests that we've done. And actually, we have a separate database for those who have been retested. So when we provide the cumulative figures to the Ghana Health Service, it excludes those who have been retested. So I think this point should be made clear, that the retesting does not affect the data that is reported. And yes, what Ghana Service is reporting is the number of individuals who are tested. Let me repeat again. Each sample is accompanied by a case investigation form for that individual. And actually the reasons we have a backlog is that, unfortunately, due to some issues in the sample collection, we have had some samples that have had no forms. Okay? So we have not been able to report and process these particular individual samples, and we are In some cases, we have had them to be resampled. New samples have been collected. They have been retested. So what you get from Ghana Health Service is the individual, that particular person's results. But of medical science, we don't put a name to a result. You get a test result. But these are test results of individuals and are not just samples. Again, to clarify that, I told you that we have 4 kinds of samples that we collect: throat swab, nasal swab, sputum, and nasal lavage. We combine all such samples from one individual to make one sample to test. We do not test them individually. For those who have actually been tested, you find that you have given both a throat swab and a nasal swab, and they are put into the same container. This is just to improve the efficiency of detection of this respiratory virus, because it is in the upper respiratory tract. So we want to go into the nose, we want to go into the throat, and we want to see if you have been infected, the virus is present.
Observable, let me please interrupt you.
Yes,
we need some clarity on this.
Yes.
And again, we are doing this because not all of us scientists, etc.,
Yes.
but many of us are expressing opinions.
Yes.
So it's important we get educated. The number of tests that are reported.
Yes.
What you are saying to the effect that we should not even worry about discounting those that were repeat tests, because it's reported is based on the case forms. The actual human beings. It's not about the samples or the test. Please explain that so that we all get it. Because I was even going to discount the 80,000 by whether it's 2% or 1% and see the real effect. Okay. But please educate us so they all flow with you.
Good, so let me start again. Each respiratory sample is accompanied by a case investigation form. Dr. Siedu Bekun, who is in here, refuses to accept any result from me if he doesn't have the case investigation form, because he needs to understand where that particular individual has come from. So each test result is based on the sample and the case investigation form. That's why we're able to tell you that people have traveled. That's why we're able to tell you that some people have not traveled. You don't have travel history rating on the tube. It's on the form. And that's where we derive the data from. So every result that you get is from an individual. The 68,000, 70,000, 1,200 tests a day are individual their data. So back to our capacity. Because we identified that our capacity is 1,200 a day, we decided to pool the samples. So our capacity, yes, we actually run 1,200 samples a day, but that is made up of 10,000 individuals. So when you break down, we're able to report the individual results of those 10,000 individuals. The retesting, for people to recover, the Ghana Health Service protocol is that you must have 2 consecutive negative PCR results. So, of course, those who were detected at the beginning of this outbreak are those who have achieved 4 consecutive test results over a period of, say, 3 weeks. If, for some people, the virus is cleared early, then they will probably have 3 PCR results. But those counts for the repeats, for the retests of people who are positive is in separate database. It is not counted amongst those who we are screening for the first time. And as I said, even if you add them, for what we have now, for the close to 80,000 individuals who have been tested, that will just 480 test results. That is insignificant. Now, I think that we will be looking at how we can improve this process. There have been some delays, and we apologize for that. Those have been due to circumstances beyond our control. I think one other issue that I'm very proud of my colleagues that we'll be able to do is, I've seen one report questioning how we were even able to conduct these tests with what reagents and what resources, because the airports are closed, there's no passenger airplane. There are cargo planes. FedEx, DHL have done quite well, and we have received resources through these particular airlines. Also, don't forget, we are research institutions. So before the outbreak, we had supplies available. And in fact, one major effort is to replace those resources that we have used for the testing. And therefore, that question about the policy is something that is strongly being considered. both by the Ministry of Science and Technology, also the Ministry of Health, and by the Ministry of Education. And the policy is being put forward so that these research institutions get an annual budget line to enable us to provide, quality work towards medical and public health in Ghana.
Colleagues, we're going to take a final batch of questions and wrap up after this. There are a number of other briefs we have for you: agriculture, trade, a few others. But today we wanted to dedicate time and attention to deal with questions about the science and the data. If there are any questions, we would like to take them. If not, we'll be wrapping up after a few closing remarks. Okay, so distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we said from the beginning, it is fair to raise questions about the data and the science. And even for the academics, they believe in preview. And so it is fair to raise legitimate questions about the data and the science. And we're happy to bring the professors of virology and epidemiology and et cetera, to come and answer those genuine questions. What is not fair is to impugn motive or intellectual dishonesty to the professors and the doctors, the lab technicians, and the experts who are breaking their backs around the clock in trying to get data to help us solve this problem. That one is not fair to them. It is fair to ask questions, and we'll do our best to get them to answer the questions. But what is not fair is to impugn ill motive and intellectual dishonesty to these experts, these doctors and professors who are breaking their backs on the clock to do this work for us. I think what we should be doing instead is to be encouraging them and supporting them, and not to be throwing their work out of the window. A last comment on opinions. We continue to encourage our colleagues in the media to help us report the fact and to raise the questions. That's all fair. When it comes to opinions, there are experts. We, the lawyers, will tell you that when you go to court, it's anybody who professes an opinion. We have what we call expert opinion. If it's about ballistics, you bring a ballistics expert to give expert opinion on ballistics. If it's about rocket science or whatever, you bring an expert in that area. We want to encourage us in the media that when it comes to opinions, let's get the experts in these areas to give opinions. You report the fact, you raise the questions, and let the experts do the opinions. One repeat point that this is not the time to encourage politicians and commentators, social commentators, to be out there putting out opinions which, as you check, sometimes are not informed by the kind of expertise that is required. We do ourselves a disservice as a country. So one implore us in the media. There are a lot of these experts out there. There are guys. The Ghana Medical Association has provided a bit more of this. As for the experts, they have their own conversation. I'm sure you heard him distinguishing between bar graph and line graph and why they should. They can have that conversation. But let us not, we those who don't understand these things now, to be preferring to put out opinions, sharing them, confusing the public. We need the public to follow what the scientists and the experts are saying. And so let me say that briefly in Twi. I think the colleagues from UTV are asking me to say it in Twi. The ayah can say, who are saying bisebia, one of the house will be bisa about data and science now. Wama esia abodi mu nyansa pe hu nimdie no. Wo question bia yesra wo utumi bisa. Ye de on be bamba bi ya no.
You're welcome. It's COVID-19 360, and just a few minutes ago we were getting updates from the press briefing organized by the Ministry of Information, where he had the Ghana Health Service and the Noguchi Memorial Institute come answer some questions that have been raised by various people, including the media and the general public as well. And we do have a new case count, and so Anita will just quickly run us through. By the way, my name is Bella, and I'm doing this with Anita.
Yes, I'm Anita Kufu, and just as Bella mentioned, our case count is now at 1,154, which is 1.5% of the total number of cases. And so for the routine routine surveillance, we have 401 cases. For the mandatory quarantine, both Accra and Tamale, we have 115. And for the enhanced or aggressive testing, we have 638. Let's do some of the recovered cases. And now it has moved from 99 to 120. We have 82 from the Ga East Hospital. Ridge Hospital has 3. The 37 has 4 recovered cases. Tema has 1. Ashanti region has 6. Tamale has 6 as well. And then the Wa Regional Hospital has 1 as well. And when you look at the well and responding to treatment, now we have 1,021. And 4 in critical condition. 1 is on ventilator at the Ga East Hospital, and we still have 9 deaths, Bella.
Yes, indeed. And also just an update on the recovered. So 17 of them are at the University of Ghana Medical Center. And so that rounds up the case counts currently in the country. But Noguchi also was answering some questions about the number of tests that they have conducted and how they were able to arrive at the over 86,000 tests that they have conducted, as against the 1,200 a day capacity that Noguchi can run. And they explained, of course, and that's by Mr. Patrick Kuma Abuaji. He explained that so they're doing the way they are conducting the test is a method that's called pooling. And so instead of doing 1 test, they're doing about 10 tests altogether, and so 10 tests each, and that gives them about 10,000 tests a day. And so currently they still have a backlog of about 30,000 tests that they've been able to run since the president addressed the nation. And so for people who are wondering why we're saying that we've done about 86,000 tests, when we do understand that Noguchi can only run about 1,200 tests a day, he says that they are pooling the samples, and so instead of testing 1 sample each, they're testing them in 10s. So we have done about 10,000 of those. We'll explain to you a few of the other things that they mentioned as well, as to what factors contribute to releasing someone for home management or isolation, and a few other things as well. And so again, this is COVID-19 360. Keep watching. We'll be back.
Biscuity, the new baby cereal from Cerelac, with a great new biscuity taste that babies absolutely love. And of course, it's fortified with iron to support babies' healthy growth, just like all the other nutritious Cerelac flavors. Cerelac, big nutrition for small tummies.
Busumunya sope na yasi ye ni ya na yasi wino wadani amanfo calendar grammar titi habama sabre no de na habama o this is the more lucky eduro no ba ye sisi ho ukwa na odo yare kwa o be tori sisi grammar ye be ko
agbebe dro to be too nyare wa bi ti se koko if it come yawo he mo ya den When say Tiana said Mubekania, Papa police, paper out Yedi, Pedriana have any bidiako Sam Yiri Huraye. Malaria. Won't say I got a fever can. Ebe Mawu ye malaria nako sharp. And no anagwa me if you be you. Agbebe fever. Hesen ka openi mensa ho ya che no. Fa agbebe fever e tu malaria. That's it.
Enye ma opim oba o ma kwada no fo. Ena nkwala omundi mfie dumienu kona kwahye omojem se etiridi yare ni bi wom ansa na wanu medru
FDA ahwehwe saa ejedie nkrato yi mu agye atomu se eye
advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Sorry I'm late.
Sir, what are you holding?
This is Karen mouthwash.
Karen mouthwash?
Yes, Karen mouthwash. You can use Karen mouthwash after brushing your teeth.
What does Karen mouthwash do?
Karen mouthwash